Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, joining us today. Today, I'm really pleased to have Elisa Larroudé. And as Elisa said, it sounds French. Larroudé, this is how you pronounce it, Elisa?
Larroudé is how I've been taught to pronounce it, but
Okay.
I've never certain that there is a single pronunciation for a word.
All right. Yeah. So Larroudé, hopefully this is how you prefer to be told. Elisa, as she mentioned in the early introduction, we aim for this meeting to be kind of informal dialogue, um, to talk to you guys, so you can talk to Elisa, and she's more than happy to help in whatever way she can. Uh, as Elisa said, she comes from an education. Hi Renata, good to have you. Uh, she comes from an education background. Uh, she's a poet. She's an educator. She's an interpreter. She's 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 a human being. From contacting Lisa, briefly dealing with her over the past few months or so, I've come to recognize that how much solidarity she shows to Palestinians, how much understanding of the Palestinian problem she has, which is really heartwarming to see people around the world expressing solidarity and expressing willingness to support and offer whatever they can. And I think this contribution is really meaningful and will be highly appreciated by our students and our community. And when you talked about scholasticide, Lisa, I relate to this. I've been researching this topic. I've written a paper which will come out soon about scholasticide and how it impacts academics and students in Gaza. And I'll be sharing this with all of you, hopefully when it is out. But yeah, it touches my heart to see the people from outside Palestine expressing this level of solidarity and support. It helps a lot, guys. You cannot imagine how much it helps us psychologically to feel the level of support that you really reflect and show. So I don't want to take too much time, this precious opportunity of listening to you, Elisa. And I'm sure the students are excited about listening to you, talking to you, asking you, learning from your experience. So leave the stage for you. Lisa, you turn over to you. Thank you.
Ahmed, thank you very much for receiving me here in this space and allowing me to engage with so many people. And I thank you all for sharing this moment. I am Elisa. I am from Brazil. It is true that I am a holder of a French passport as well, so I do have dual nationality, but my identity is as Brazilian. I have been immersed in this culture, and also I am an educator in higher education in management, in topics such as communications and consulting and research methodology. So very applied classes that involve processes more than lectures. So I'm not often a lecturer, and I very much I'm happiest engaging in dialogue, as Ahmed proposed. And I would like to thank Donia for putting us in touch, Ahmed, because we wouldn't be here if it weren't for her. So thank you, Donia. I hope you were able to join us at some point. I have received some responses to the survey, and I have asked at the end, can you describe what is your discomfort? What is your concern with public speaking? And I see more than one person saying, I am afraid of being misunderstood. And I hope that that is something that I can ask more about, why people are afraid of being misunderstood. But before I ask, while I get people to warm up to the idea of sharing that with us, I would like to say that the fear of public speaking is very much shared throughout the planet, and it does not select for class or for privilege or for race or for age or for, although experience does help. So age does help with experience, but otherwise, we are often, many people are fearful of public speaking. It is one of the most common fears on the planet. And sometimes if we examine what we are fearful of, it can be helpful, because sometimes we are fearful of being ridiculed or feeling ridiculous or feeling exposed. And then we consider what actually is that going to expose us to? It's going to expose us to feelings. Those feelings may translate into physiological experiences. That is true. So yes, it is possible to be frightened to a point where it is more than uncomfortable or where it can be dangerous. But otherwise, we are talking about physiological sensations that are translated from feelings, and we can work with that. We can, those are within the realm of what we can control. And we know we have overcome them several different times. So sometimes we forget that when we're nervous about speaking to a group. And often we forget that the other people who are listening to us are just as afraid as we are just as nervous as we are. That is often the case as well. While it is true that when we are, for instance, graduate students and we are defending our thesis to our examination board, they are not very much afraid of us. We are more afraid of them. That is true. But even so, we can still work with the emotions that we are feeling and address them. And we can work with emotions that we can try to have emerge with our interlocutors. So now that we have shared a little bit about how the fear of public speaking is very much more universal than we are typically aware of, I would like to listen to people who are here, why they fear being misunderstood, and if there's any other way that I can help. And I can have more meetings with people if they like. I can offer to be, if someone wants to work more closely with a particular project, I can also have that opportunity as well, where it's a smaller setting. But here, please, does anyone want to share what about feeling misunderstood or other ways that public speaking can help? The title of this session, Ahmed, was Speaking Up from Gaza, Stories from Future Changemakers, the Art of Public Speaking for Future Changemakers. Yes. Mara, please.
Hello,
Thank you.
and thank you for this chance. Actually, since some time I'm looking for a webinar or something like that, and I tried to watch a complete course on edX, but then I couldn't manage that. So thank you. And I think my concern is not about being afraid of being misunderstood or something like that. But I think I'm afraid of losing an idea or anything like that. So just
So losing the train of thought, the plot, losing the place you were talking about.
yeah, exactly.
Did I understood you properly?
Yeah.
That reminds me of a story. I forget who said it, but we can look it up later. But the person was asked, how much time do you need to prepare when you're asked to speak? And he said, well, if I have 10 minutes, then I need 2 weeks to prepare. If I have 20 minutes, then I need a week to prepare. And if there's no time limit, I don't need any preparation at all. We can start now. So we may ramble, we may digress when we are not when we want to add a lot of things into something and we realize that there's more than we expected to when we first began. The solution to that sort of thing involves planning our speech. So that is less of off the cuff, less of speaking in a meeting, for instance, and more of a speech, more of a talk that we are giving, more of a pitch. So with a planned speech, that is much easier to avoid because we have decided ahead of time how to deal with that. What are the important points? When we are forced to edit, we are forced to decide what stays in and what will be taken out. And sometimes that is a painful process because we know so much about something and we think that so many things are important. And then someone tells us, you are invited to be on the TED stage and you have 12 minutes. Deal with it. You're going to have to make choices. And that is actually a bonus in a way, because it forces us to prioritize, to decide what is the most important part and what can be left for a second conversation. It's not that it's not important. It's not that we are going to exclude it, but we are going to have to prioritize. I will share with Ahmed a link later. And if Ahmed, you think it will be useful now, I can find it and share it during the session because it is a video of about 4 minutes on how to speak when we're not prepared to speak. And I think it is a very educational video and it is about 4 minutes long. So if you think it is useful during, I can share. If you think it's going to add more delay to the transmission, I can just send the link later. Let me know what works better. But the video was prepared by a speaker coach that works with TED speakers. And this was when she was talking about an unprepared moment when we are asked, for instance, by a media or in a room of some sort. So she tries to give us a mental map for that. So we are going to use any time we have to prepare, even if it's the 3 seconds that we have where we are saying, thank you for asking that question. Pause, pause. All of this time, we've had time to think in our minds about something, about how we're going to answer. And then she also talks about deciding where we want to land with this question. So that requires us to have a choice, a priority of it, because we may be asked, I may ask you, what are the greatest challenges you're facing now? Imagine the list you can have. And maybe that wasn't a smart question of me if I wanted a short answer from you, but still, we often see this from journalists. We have 30 seconds. What is the message you want the West to understand? It is usually not an easy position, and the more prepared we are for that moment. So the experiences of our colleagues when they were asked this, and when we saw a message not go as well, we can refine it and then use that the next time, because it is an ongoing process. So decide where we want to land at the end of the question, and then decide how we're going to get there. We can do a small structure. She talks about past, present, future. This is how it used to be. This is where we are. This is where it's going. Or pros and cons. Or we can decide on a quick structure of our answer if we have time to get that far. But this is the kind of thing that she suggests we try to remember at that moment. And the more we are exposed to that moment, to that situation, the easier it will become to remember it, to address it, for it to become muscle memory, for it to become something we are used to doing. And it soon will actually be in a comfort zone. I can remember the first time I stepped into a classroom of undergraduates, and my heart was beating very, very fast. They couldn't hear it, I suppose, but it was. And I was, wearing a blazer, and I didn't smile because I thought associated all of that with being in control of the classroom. this is 20 years ago, but anyhow, this is how I was approaching it. Now I do not feel nervousness at all with that kind of situation, but I'm very much used to it after decades. But I remember how I felt the first time. And it is a reference to how we can feel just because we're not used to it and because we're afraid of something. But what is that something? Is that fear an actual risk? Or is it just a fear that is speaking to me because I brought it in the room? Which is sometimes the case. Mara, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but I hope some of this helps. Planning a talk is one way, and training to speak without preparation and getting more used to it is the other. And then and having a clear message of what we want to share. With activism, we tend to have a clearer message. Thank you. And how do you pronounce your name?
Maya.
Mara.
Yeah.
Maya.
Yeah,
Maya.
thank you.
Thank you.
Maya.
And I see, thank you, Maya. Mena. I see Mena with her raised hand, please.
Yes, it's Minna. About being misunderstood. When you are asking somebody, for example, there's somebody took something from you without asking your permission. So you wanted to face them and say to them that you didn't ask me for permission or even ask me to take this thing. Then they stealing this and something like this. I didn't say that you are stealing this from me. So how can you?
Mena,
can you make sure you come closer to the microphone? Yeah, yeah. Or you just come closer to your microphone, Mena. Make sure that you come close to your microphone.
Now,
now it's clear. Yeah, good. Go ahead.
Okay.
Can you come again? Can you repeat your question?
Okay. So I was talking that there's somebody took something from you without asking you for permission, and when you ask them why you took these things without asking permission from me, they say that you are saying that we are like stealing your things and something like this. So how we can deal with these situations? Like this is from a misunderstood.
Right. Okay. I think that will vary a lot depending on the circumstances. We will often have this part of the situation where if people have different native languages, that can play a role. So one word, when I translate that to another language, has a different connotation, a different weight, and yet we were just using the dictionary term and had no idea of what we were doing. So there is that portion to consider that will require understanding what people understood from things. So that will be one portion. There is another portion which I thought of when you were describing it, which was the emotional one, which is a reaction from when you described it. I understood the reaction of the other part as being on the defensive. And why do people go on the defensive? It can be for a variety of reasons. It can be because they are defending themselves unjustifiably or justifiably. But we go on the defensive because we feel threatened. And whether or not we were right to feel threatened is secondary to whether or not we do feel threatened. That is, we can reduce our sense of threat if we understand logically that we don't need to, but the sense of threat is not necessarily logical. It will come, it will be instinctive, and it may or may not be logical, but we will have it as an instinct, even if you are, a predator may feel a threat and prey may feel a threat. That does not put us in any given position. And we have also the part that we are discussing a confrontation of some sort. So we are talking about the term without permission. So we are discussing something that was, maybe the proper word would not be stealing, but there is some word that is saying this was not, why did you do this that was not correct in my perception? So when we are talking about a confrontation, then I think the circumstances will matter a lot, because it can be, if I am talking about my spouse and why did you do this without asking me first, it is a discussion about the partnership that we have as well, and how do we plan on having it towards the future. It's a different situation of someone that I don't know, or I mean, my neighbor is a different story. We didn't necessarily choose to be neighbors, and we aren't necessarily going to choose not to, but we are going to have to find ways to get along even if we dislike each other. And it's a different situation if we've never seen the person before and we're not going to have to see them again. We don't live with them. And also, are we in a state of equality in the eyes of whatever law is applying to us? I mean, is it a parent talking to a child? Is it an army talking to an individual? Is it, so what are we, or are we talking on two people? I mean, is it George and Millie saying, hey, why did you do this? Or is it, I don't know, let's assume that Ahmed is George's supervisor. It is a different relationship. There's a hierarchy there. So will George have the same ease to say, Ahmed, why did you schedule this appointment for us without asking my permission? You took my time without asking my permission. Will she ask that the same way that she would of Millie, for instance? I mean, the hierarchy may play a difference. So I think we need to assess our goal in the confrontation. Do we want to obtain the thing back? Do we want to state that that was not okay to be done again? Do we want to make sure that my relationship with that person is okay? And these are different goals. They are not mutually exclusive, but they may not be necessarily, they might not be mutually inclusive. They might, I mean, there is sometimes the feeling of you pick your battles because you're not going to, am I imagining with a relationship with the spouse, for instance? I mean, or with a sibling. Siblings often take things without permission, and we are in usually equal standing there. And there is a higher authority who's either saying let them decide themselves, or can take a position. So, what are the other resources we have? Why are we communicating with that person? What is our goal? And I think that can be the first thing we have in mind. But when you say being misunderstood, like taking without permission from stealing, I would consider, what is the language? What are the words that are being used, perhaps? Where is the focus of the misunderstanding? Is it in the words? Maybe I can find metaphors. Metaphors are more amplifiable and translatable than just the words. So that may be one way to get the point across. Does that help, Mina? Oh, Mina lost her. No,
Yeah.
Mina's there.
Yeah, it was helpful. Thank you. There's another question. What is the major reason
Okay.
being misunderstood?
I'm sorry? What if the mother is being...
What is the major reason of being misunderstood?
The measure of being misunderstood?
Yeah, the major reason. The reason.
I mean, the major reason, the basic reason,
Yeah.
the common reason.
Oh, okay. Maybe because there were actually more monologues than dialogues. This is speculation on my part. I mean, I think the research will define more by circumstance, but I think maybe the biggest reason would be because we're not dialoguing on the emotional level that is actually crying out. If we were more honest with what we are asking for ourselves, we would be more honest about what we expect from other people. Perhaps it's expectation management. I mean, where I find that I diminish being misunderstood is managing expectations, so people understand what they can count on and what they cannot, and being upfront about it as much as I can is how I diminish that kind of thing. I see a hand raised for Ruba, and we can go back to that, Mena, if you want later. Ruba, please.
Yeah, I've got a question. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Ruba, please.
My question is, talking about speech talk skill, is there a trick that we can use to make us, our unprepared speech smarter? I mean, like we can talk, and when you come back home, you can go like, oh, if I said that, I would have been looked smarter, or it would, my idea would get crossed better. So if there's, like I know that reading books and watching interviews and speeches would help, but I mean, like in a more practical way.
Ruba, I think there can actually be tons, and if I consider, if I have a more direct answer to your question, I will send it to Ahmed later to make sure you get it. But what can I instinctively think of? I think the first thing I would consider is understanding yourself. Where are your moments of feeling, what is your comfort zone? And when do you want to stay in it because there you feel stronger? And when do you want to push yourself to make it a little bigger and a little bigger? Because we need to, it is important, yes, to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, but also to understand when we can use our comfort zone to our advantage. So that it may be moments for our message to get across that we are going to choose to deliver it from our comfort zone. But that awareness of where is our comfort zone could be the first part. The awareness of when have I been misunderstood? If I only have one shot at something, if I'm thinking of a situation where I have only one possibility, then I would consider being very prepared for that possibility. But if I'm considering my usual interactions, then it is learning from each one of them and trying to adopt what I noticed worked for me. So the first thing would be that self-awareness. There are people, I've been listening to one person who talks about how to improve. She's called Vanessa Van Edwards. She is American, and she says, I used to be very, very shy, and she was this very applied student, and she couldn't get, I mean, she wanted to, the teacher gave an assignment that was supposed to be done in a group. Each person had 5 pages in the assignment. And she went to the professor and said, I will do 10 pages if I can do it on my own. And the professor said to her, the paper is not the point. The process of working with the team is the point. And then he suggested to her, and this was her aha moment, why don't you approach looking at how people relate as a science as well? I mean, you love chemistry, you're good at chemistry, so look at the science of what works for people. And she turned that in the science of people. So I will send material to her videos to Ahmed later. I thought she has been working with this, so she will have different tricks. She talked about how, for instance, with our eyes, when we do this a little bit is okay because we're bowing a little bit. But if we do this all the time, we're not really portraying something that is inspiring. And that would be, so we don't want to dose things. We do want to put a little bit, but then not too much. And how, if I squint at you a little bit, it shows how I am also interested. And she's talking about these things where we don't understand them at a conscious level. It's more the subconscious level. I don't know exactly how they study these things, but that's where she's compiled the science that she ran into a couple of books, and she's been on podcasts, so she can be watched on video as well. I'll find the different ways of accessing her, and then you can choose. But it will be paying attention to what is your comfort zone. Do you find it easy to, and for instance, when you're learning to drive, at first it's very strange because you're paying attention to so many things at once. But then after a while you get used to it and becomes something you do with second nature. So it involves increasing your comfort zone on these public speaking situations. And if you are feeling uncomfortable to face them, maybe you can ask a friend, can I rehearse with you? Can I experiment with you? Will you do a little bit of a laboratory with me? You can ask for people who are safe to you to experiment with safe spaces. And the only thing that is a risk there is looking ridiculous. And it's actually fun to look ridiculous every once in a while. So I hope you do experiment with that, and that you get to look ridiculous to other people, and that they get to laugh at you and with you and thanks to you, so that this is something that becomes more fluid. In the supposed time to respond to a question on a public speaking platform, I think it will depend on the platform. And I mean, if we're in cable news in the United States, where you're often given 30 seconds to speak about something, you don't really go deep. In long form, the podcast form, which has become more interesting, you are asked a question and you usually have a longer time to answer. So you get to speak from your heart, and even you don't have to have the planned speech. But yeah, noting things that are on your mind and noting them on paper, not just noting them in your mind, but writing them down makes a difference. We're using the fact that we're using muscles and writing them down does different things to our brain than just making a mental note. So we're creating more relationships with those ideas because we took the time to write them down in longhand and not just type them or just make notes of them. And so that brainstorming can be very useful. But again, I would consider, what is the trade-off? A journalist goes on platforms all the time and is always workshopping it. A TED Talk is something you do once. So you're going to prepare a whole lot for that. And it will depend in between. I mean, what is the importance of that opportunity? How many times are you going to defend your thesis versus how many times are you going to give a talk about the thesis that you defended afterwards? So the talk afterwards, you will be able to experiment with and even say, this version didn't go so well, and that's not going to matter. And you're going to dedicate more to the defense of your thesis, probably, because that's going to be a one-time thing, and you're going to get that. You're going to want to prepare more for that to feel more at home. But it will depend on what is the moment you're in, and what is the proportion of that. If you have 30 seconds, if you have 5 minutes of an hour, the proportion, I would look at the proportion of the circumstance for the time. And think, if they don't tell me how much time, maybe, I don't know, 3 times the size of the question, 10 times the size of the question. If it was a very long question, they're expecting an elaborate answer. But sometimes it will depend on who's asking as well. Public speaking can vary a lot. And I'm not a specialist in the media part. I'm much more comfortable in interpersonal interactions, and with the prepared speech, I can help a lot with that. And I'm hoping to learn a lot more yet for getting prepared to speak with the media. I think that's a different game. And I hope to learn a lot more from that too. I had a total of 5 answers, so I'm not sure that having a full results will make sense here, but I will send the result to Ahmed to share it later as well, if anyone else is able to answer later. And I will send these to the emails, the individual versions as well. They will not be as significant in terms of comparison to an average because there was a small number of people, but it will still show you amongst the people who answered, how did you compare to them? Because we're always on a reference. There's always someone who's shyer than we are and someone who is more confident than we are. It really depends on the circumstances. There's always something that makes someone afraid, no matter how confident they seem. And there's always some point where someone who is shy will feel confident. We may not have seen it yet. Who else has? Donia! Hello, Donia. It's so great to see you here. I was saying that we met because thanks to you. If anyone else has more questions, I am very grateful to be able to be with you here. And if anyone wants to think of preparing a speech or a talk or something like that, I will be happy to help with that process, to speak, to watch a rehearsal, to give feedback on how, as a potential audience member, how that would resonate, how we can work with being understood for a global audience and thinking of different words and how they can be more universal sometimes. The speed at which we speak can make a difference, depending. If I speak a little too quickly, I will not be understood by the same number of people. If I speak too slowly, I will bore more people. And I will not be understood necessarily depending on if I learned English as a first, second, or third language. When I have a class that has people from different countries, I often find that the people who speak French as a first language have the hardest time being understood in English. And we work sometimes on that pronunciation, and it sometimes it feels that we are making a lot of effort for a language that doesn't really necessarily have deserved all of that, besides being a lingua franca of empire. But also we can consider, okay, if I'm going to use this language, how can I use it to the best of how can it best serve me? And then I can consider, well, do I need to consider how I am pronouncing a given word? I would go back to how important is that particular stage. I think it makes it, if there's a risk that being misunderstood could compromise the effectiveness of my message, and if that is an opportunity for my message to reach more people, I think it's worth investing in getting it to be very carefully crafted, and to avoid and to talk to different people. Like, if will it be understood in the same way in Eastern countries and Western countries? I see a hand up that is for Hassan. Hassan.
Yes.
Do I pronounce it Hassan or Hassan?
Hello. Hassan. It is pronounced
Hassan.
like Hassan.
Hassan.
Yeah. I'm happy to be here with you today. I have two questions. The first one, according to your experience in this field, what are the most common mistakes in public speaking that we should avoid when we want to speak?
Okay. I know I'm going to sound very repetitive, but again, it will be awareness. It will not be the same thing for everybody. I think we want to avoid a situation that, if we can identify where there will be no right answer, because that is not made for a dialogue, that is not made to get our message out, that's made to cage us. So I would avoid having to give an answer in that circumstance. And then we're not talking necessarily about communication. We're talking more about it's leaving communication and talking about framing and almost legal situations. So I would try to get out of that. I would try to avoid when my emotions are not in check. If I cannot go for a couple of minutes before and put myself in a position where I am going to speak and I am giving myself to my audience, if I'm not able to put myself in a place, if I'm actually, if I'm carrying a negative emotion like anger or resentment, and it may come out and the audience did nothing to deserve that. So I would avoid, if I cannot compartmentalize, if I am at risk of giving out an emotion that will not be the fault of the audience, or maybe, I mean, if the audience questions something and I will snap at them, and when it could just have been answered with curiosity, that will be a risk. If I may let my emotions overlap into a situation that had nothing to do with that. And in a public arena, that can cost me more than just an embarrassment. That is when I consider I would not. I mean, if it's not going to be conducive to dialogue.
Yes, I
Does
agree
that
with you.
answer? Okay. Okay, Hassan. And you had another question,
Yeah,
or was that? I'm sorry. Did
said
you
that
do both?
you said that you are from Brazil. So the
Yes, I
first
am from
language
Brazil.
is,
I am Brazilian.
yeah, the first language is Brazilian, then English, the second language, for example. So you
For
are like
me,
us, the first
okay,
language. You
yes.
you are like us. The first language is Arabic, then the second language is English. So I want to hear your opinion in the situation where I have a meeting, and for example, the instructor or who lead the meeting ask me a good question, and I don't have time to brainstorming and answer this question, and I have to answer in English. So in this position, what should I do? Even if I think first
Okay.
in Arabic, then in English. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I think that is something that you can become more and more used to and prepared for over time. And maybe you will never be entirely, and I mean, it will depend on the fluency of your second language, and whether you are, how much are you at home in that language and are able to have fun in that language. My situation was, I was born and my mother and my family spoke to me in Portuguese, but I went to the United States before I learned to read and write. So my primary education then became in English. And then I came back to Brazil. So I learned grammar in Portuguese. So there's a mix of how I eventually learned it. But the result is that I can fool Americans or English speaking countries, as I can pass for a native speaker for a while. It doesn't necessarily come out right away. So I can think, what I mean is I can already feel at home enough. If I am thinking in a different language, so let me see if it will cause me to pause. Am I the only, so I would consider again the circumstances. Am I the only one in that meeting who has to think in a different language before answering? Is everyone else in that? What is the proportion there? Is there just, we are speaking in English, but everyone comes from a different country? What is the setting of how many people are native to the language that we are speaking, and how many people have acquired that language afterwards? Is that setting considering that or not? I mean, is the group as a whole considering that some people are not native and therefore are giving enough allowances for everyone to speak as comfortably as they wish? Or no, are you as much as and under the same pressure, and you have to work harder because you have more work to do than whoever is speaking already thinking in English? So that will put you under more pressure. You may, in that circumstance, you may choose, I might consider, giving a shorter message that will be more impactful and saying, I can share more about this if you want, but making my message shorter so that I can keep people on track, because the attention span of people will be, I will take a little bit longer. So I may want to make my message shorter to make sure I have the same kind of impact. That may be a trade-off that I am facing, and I may choose to go in one direction or another. But if the meeting is allowing for the circumstance that some people are not native speakers, that will be less required. People will be engaged in wanting to understand what you want to say. And what is your position in that? Or do you call any shots? Are you there as a favor? Can you be kicked out of that room? Is there a hierarchy in that room? Do you answer to anyone? What is your homework beforehand? So brainstorming ideas and writing them down on paper with your, or I mean, using your hand to write them down, even if we wipe them later, but using our hands would be how I would prepare for this. But I would consider those different aspects to see what else I might prepare. Can I have allies in that meeting to help me? Am I the only person that I can count on, or are there more people? Because you're talking about an interaction of a group that can involve more things. And the main thing may be the keywords that I want people to understand. I want to make sure that I am pronouncing them in a way that they will recognize. And I'm thinking of my French students here who might use a word that they pronounce so differently from what people are used to hearing that people didn't recognize the word and didn't really follow. And dialogue means that there were two parties involved in that miscommunication, but how can we, the part that we control, how can we make it more efficient? And part of it may be the pronunciation of our key words, the words that we find most important. We want to make sure that they are easy to cut out and recognize. What did he say again? Oh yeah, he was talking about that subject. That is, when people give us the headline of what was our intervention. Yes, Hassan.
Yes, I get your point. Honestly, when I faced such this situation many times, and each time when I face this situation, I leave the meeting and come back after 5 minutes and say that my internet connection is lost. So I want to improve that, and so that's why I asked the question.
The connection may have caught a little bit. So if I understand you correctly, you didn't necessarily hear all of what I was able to answer. You'll catch the recording later.
No, I said I got your point. I asked this question about what should I do in this position because I faced this situation many times during Zoom meetings, and when I faced this situation, I leave the meeting, and after 5 minutes, I came back and say, sorry, my internet connection was lost. So that's why I asked you this.
That can be a resource. I mean, that is understanding what we need to prepare to become more impactful in our own messaging when we are using our interpersonal resources. Mena was writing here that texting is easier than a voice conversation, which is easier than a face-to-face conversation. And I think that makes a lot of sense because that each instance increases the demand on our interaction. When I'm texting, I can pause and think and overthink and then come back. We are each proceeding at a pace that can take up to a day for the next person. A text can be we can keep the pace where we want it, whereas a phone conversation or a voice conversation requires immediate response. And we hear the tones. So the text is more sober and the voice has more inflection. So that's why we add emojis and sometimes exclamation points to make sure our text messages feel more emotional than just telegraphic. When we are speaking in voice, we are more able to understand whether or not the person is patient or impatient. If they're more attentive or unattentive, we can grasp, and we are also giving those cues as well. And face to face, we have a whole bunch more of cues, and we're talking about the body language and what our face is saying, and these things that we pick up on without becoming aware of it, like whether the other person's pupils dilated. I'm not looking at people's pupils like that, but my body, my eyes are noticing that on some level and is reacting to that on some level, even if it's not crossing my thoughts. So it is more intensive. And it can be more draining and more rewarding accordingly. So because of the intensity of the interaction, I think is what increases it. And because of part of it, I mean, the pandemic made entire generations go through their puberty on Zoom rather than in classrooms and in schoolyards. So I think that we're still going to feel the effects of that, of people overcoming shyness in a different way than people were used to. I mean, what the generations that used to this used to be the pattern. Now we have a different group here who learned things a little bit differently, and we're watching what happens to them as people got a different set of learnings, and we're going to see what happens with that. That's part of it. But in any case, I mean, the intensity is also, like I said, it can also be more rewarding. I mean, we get a person who's energetic, and we got to meet them, can boost our day. And that is the level. I mean, even over Zoom, when we don't get to actually exchange the pheromones, we can still feel that energy coming to us. So the intensity can be where we will most easily overcome our discomfort. I mean, it will be more challenging, but it will also, I think, be quicker, because we don't have as much time to feel uncomfortable, because the conversation keeps going. There are other things to pay attention to. We can't overthink it because we have to keep thinking about other things. So it's also more like living life instead of thinking about it. Yahya. Is it Yahya? 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 I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I'm thinking of possibilities. My first extinction is Yahya. Thank you, Hassan. Yahya, you're asking about non-native speakers to communicate in English. I think that it was a little bit similar to what Hassan was asking. And I think one of the things is to pick the words that are the key words of your message, and make sure those are the clearest of all to your audience. So if you're talking about AI, then make sure that you're going to say artificial intelligence or AI, and then first you're going to say that more pronouncedly, AI, and then later on you can say it more quickly because everybody's caught on. But it's the sort of expression where if the person didn't catch it at the beginning, you can start having a whole monologue about a topic, and the person didn't catch the topic, so they're wondering, what exactly are they talking about? Is it humanity? Is it because they didn't catch the keyword at the beginning? So make sure that the keywords are very easy to follow. I mean, make those clear and detachable and unmistakable. Rehearsing, that's true for, I mean, the things that are true for when we're speaking in our native language are also true when we're communicating in our non-native language. So preparing, rehearsing with someone else, calming ourselves ahead of time, and being more present in the moment. We don't have to have a good accent or even to get all of the words or the grammar right. That is not going to prevent us from communicating. The keywords, I think, are the something that is, I mean, I can talk about, for instance, a need or a lack, or, and if I don't make it sure, we're talking about needs, things that people are lacking. So the resource that people don't have and then they need, we are going to use the phrase, the keywords in different phrases so that they are easy to catch. I would focus on that kind of thing. I would consider, who is my audience? Is my audience native or non-native? Because a non-native audience will be more open to different interpretations, whereas a native audience will more likely go into a more traditional version of the word or their own slang version of the word. So it will vary if my audience is non-native and we're just using English because we don't speak each other's languages. I don't speak Arabic, you don't speak Portuguese, so we're going to communicate in English. Thank goodness there is English for us to communicate, yes. And it's a pity that we don't yet speak Arabic or Portuguese, but maybe we'll do that in the future, hopefully. But if I am speaking English to an Arabic speaking audience, I expect them to be, in my experience, they will be more tolerant and flexible and careful about the understanding and the words. Whereas a native audience doesn't always remember that because it's assumed that everyone is just as comfortable in the language as they are. So the assumptions that I bring, and I should remember the assumptions that my audience is bringing. Yeah, is that, does that answer you? I'm not sure if I'm just thinking of possibilities here. It would, if you have the chance, add slides or PowerPoint or something else visual. That is in, whether we're talking about native or non-native, but visual adds force to what we are saying. People pay more attention. People are receiving the message in more than one mode, so that reinforces the message. I mean, some people who are very effective speakers, even if we disagree with what they're saying, but they are unfortunately very effective speakers, are always bringing some kind of chart when they're speaking at the United Nations. That's on purpose, and that's effective. So the effectiveness of strategies we can adopt, and visual is a strong one. Having something visual that will point to and add to that illustrates our situation does add to the effectiveness of our messages, of the receipt of our message, or to the transmission of our message. Carve out the words, and if you can, add visuals that will reinforce it so that you can have more than one mode. That would be my first ideas. But again, our self-awareness is the first key, and awareness of the circumstances and what we can, what is favorable to us and what is less favorable, and what and can be challenges and new opportunities. That awareness of ourselves and of our circumstances is going to be a necessary point for anyone to communicate. Can I answer any more questions? Can I help with anything else in any more situations? I imagine that connectivity is complicated. I can see that. But we can always find other moments as well. Even if it's not in a scheduled session, we can find more moments as well. Mena, I hope you overcome your shyness or over time. And the more you interact with people, the closer you will get to that. I mean, you're already speaking here. You're not already overcome whatever initial shyness you thought you might have had. But I mean, we always might feel shy in a new circumstance. I'm sure there are moments where I will feel shy. And
Thank you so much.
I
I'm trying to break my shy actually. I'm super, super shy face to face, so it's easier to talk here. So thank you. It was an great session with you. So thank you so much. You're great.
thank you so much for sharing, Mina, and for interacting, because it is by hearing what you have to how I can help is how this is helpful for me too. I mean, I'm glad that I can help. This is also nourishing me. Know that as well, people. Rupa, we can speak more. I'm glad to hear that. If you'd like to join forces in some way, thank you so much. I have promised you then the video from Blair Goldberg from TED and materials from Vanessa Van Edwards. And I will compile the answers to the survey that arrive both in individual and collective form and share all of these with Ahmed. And you can access them whenever is useful for you at your leisure.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. This is really wonderful. Guys, if you have any comment or question before we wrap up, I know that you have found this session informative and engaging. I learned so much. Elisa, do you mind if I ask you a question? Do you have any thought when it comes to awkward silence? Like when it comes to, like, sometimes you have a specific kind of, let's say, number of seconds, 3 to 4 to 5 seconds. What is your say on that when it comes to awkward silence within the talk?
That is an excellent question, Ahmed. Thank you for asking it. It will vary. Again, the circumstances of that particular dialogue, I think, in my experience. But sometimes silences are awkward because we want to fill them. We don't want the silence. We're associating things with silence. And if we just, that may be our own anxiety in some way that is afraid of a silence meaning something negative in some way. We have this desire to fill the silence somehow. And if we can feel comfortable with the silence, that is perhaps the first point to consider. I mean, friends that can be together in silence, that is a friendship that is gotten stronger. I think you're comfortable being silent together. Spouses learn how to be comfortable being silent together. There can be silences that mean people are uncomfortable, and it can be because I wanted to remember your name and it's coming to me, but if we can identify, so again, awareness, what is the where is the discomfort coming from? I want to say your name and I don't remember it. What is it that I want to fill here? I want to leave, but I don't know how, and I don't want to look like a jerk. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to say what we think, but the first point is being aware of what we wanted to put in the place of that silence, becoming more aware of that. And consider, does it need to be put there? Am I holding back from saying something that needs to be said? Or am I actually, is it good that I held back because we didn't need that there? That was unnecessary. That was a distraction from my own past things. So sometimes we didn't need to fill that silence with, how's your mom? Were you really concerned about that person's mom, or were you just uncomfortable without having something to say? Because what does it say? You're not as close friends as you used to be? Is that a problem? There won't be a single particular answer. I mean, an awkward silence in a professional setting is one thing, in a romantic setting is another, in a parent-child setting is another. I mean, it will vary a lot. But it can also be just two people who are on the same edge of being uncomfortable, like, I forget your name. I forgot yours too. Okay, that's okay. We can both say that. And we're now at the same point. So being aware of if your discomfort is minor or major, and do you want to address it there? Why not? I mean, I usually get uncomfortable with these silences. Do you? You know, it could be an opening up of something that you never expected. Doña, so good to see you here. Please go ahead, Doña.
At the beginning, I wanted to thank you for this meeting, even though I disconnected multiple times because there are lack of internet. But I wanted to share something here because I believe in both the power of silence and the power of word at the same time. Because when you feel that the other side you are struggle with or have a compare with is then equal for your, for example, educations, thinking and so on, and you feel like you are waste your time in these conversations. So the best way, I think, that keep silence and don't waste your power with this part or this.
Can you repeat the end? The best way to keep the silence is to? Donia, I think I missed the last part of what you said. And it may be that her connection doesn't help that. But we can catch that. I really want to hear what she. Just a message here. Leave it like it is. Yes. Why do we need to change something necessarily? That is part of what, who made us the responsible for changing things? Thank you, Tanya. That was great to hear. And I look forward to a moment where I get to hear more from you, where connectivity allows us to have an exchange that has more fluidity to it than is now available through the limited airwaves. But I thank you very much for making this possible. This is very, I'm very happy to be able to share that, to be able to be with, to be able to share this moment.
Oh,
thank you, Rupa.
Lovely feedback. Honestly, lovely feedback. And I can share with you, Elisa, that I've been receiving text messages from some people who are here, but they're saying, thank you for this opportunity with this generous and kind person. This is how they described you, generous and kind person. So congratulations on such a wonderful session, and I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your time. And I would suggest that, if you don't mind, in the near future, if some of the attendees would love to prepare something in advance and rehearse, I'm sure they wouldn't mind switching their cameras on in the future if we ask them. If you want, we can go without recording the meeting if you want to do some practice. And Elisa, as she promised, she's willing and ready to help you with this and give you feedback if you want. If you have a talk, for example, or a speech, or a competition that you would like to try, Elisa kindly has agreed to offer help and support in this regard, and would love to help you. And I'm sure Elisa would bring so much into your experience, so much positivity into your experience. Those comments and feedback reflect how positive impact, Elisa, you had on those lovely young men and women today. And I'm sure you lit up their day. So, well, again, thank you so much for your time, Elisa. If you want to say something before we wrap up, please feel free to do so.
You lit up my day. Thank you. It's morning here. The sun is not out, but I'm feeling the sunshine inside me.
Well, thank you so much. Lovely words. Lovely ending. Thank you so much. And thanks for your time. Thanks, Renata, for joining us. It was great to have you. Thanks, George. Thanks for your time. It was great to have you. Thanks, Millie. Thanks, Dr. Yahya. Thanks, everyone. And hopefully we'll see you soon, inshallah, with other sessions with Elisa and other great, wonderful people who would share with us their expertise and time and experience. Thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.